Okay, so in my previous video, I talked about how double exposure could actually be inspired by the Life is Strange comic books. I tried to point out some similarities between the game and the comics and compare them. I really enjoyed making video about this topic. Since then, well, I had a plan to make a video about some popular double exposure fan theories. But to be honest, I kinda lost my enthusiasm for that topic. Maybe I will come back to it later. There's also a plan about making videos where I would explain the story of Life is Strange comic books. If you would be interested in any of these topics, make sure to write me a comment about it. By the way, I had to add this part to the script after it was already finished, but a while ago, we just hit 20,000 views on my first video about answering the biggest unanswered questions from double exposure. I would like to thank everyone who watched it, liked it, commented on it, or subscribed to my channel after watching it. Seeing how much you enjoyed it, and that I helped to change opinion about this game for the better for at least a few people, it really means a lot to me. I would also like to thank you for all the interactions with other videos as well. Even if they didn't get as many views, likes, or comments, they are still proof that it was all worth it, and that we have a really awesome community over here. So, thank you again, and I hope that I'll be able to produce more enjoyable content for you in the future. Alright, back to the video. I was thinking, what could be really interesting to talk about? And while talking with my friend a few days before starting to write the script, I suddenly realized what I would really like to discuss. So, as we all know, double exposure really wasn't as successful as Square Enix and Deck 9 wanted it to be. I'm not just talking about the count of sold games, but also about reviews. Having only mixed reviews isn't really something what they hoped for. And while we're still waiting for any official confirmation of the sequel, I would like to talk about what could make the sequel actually really good. Just to make things clear, this is not a video about what I think that will happen in the sequel. I just want to show my point of view about what might make the sequel a great game. While reading Reddit posts, there were a few complaints that I noticed the most. The first one, unsurprisingly, was the absence of Chloe. To be honest, I really cannot relate with that, because I didn't expect to see Chloe in this game at all. It might have been really difficult to make a game where sacrifice Arcadia Bay and sacrifice Chloe choices would have greater consequences. And I understand that. What I can agree with is that double exposure could have already been advertised more as a sacrifice Chloe game, just as the comics were advertised as a sacrifice Arcadia Bay alternative. It would have been more fair to all players. With that, I can fully agree. Another complaint was about the technical state of double exposure, and if you watched my previous videos, you know what I'm talking about. I reported a few bugs to Square Enix support. I even recorded 4 videos for them, because they kindly asked me to show them how I got to these bugs, and I can say that the counts of views on those videos haven't changed since I uploaded them. So yeah, they probably won't be fixed. And if anyone from Square Enix is watching this video, I really didn't report them to hate the game. I honestly care about Life is Strange, and I want the games to be really good and enjoyable for every player. The last of the biggest complaints I noticed was that maybe it wasn't the best choice to have Max as a playable character. Meaning that maybe Safi should have been the one we could play as. And even though I really loved playing as Max and seeing her again, I have to agree that it would have been awesome to play as Safi and seeing her point of view, at least for some parts of the game. But this was the point, which when I was discussing with my friend, it finally hit me. So, as I said, it would be really cool to play as Safi, at least for some parts of the game. And as we all know, Life is Strange is a choice-based franchise, and its intention is for those choices to have a real consequences. Now, we know that double exposure had only Max as a playable character, and our choices actually had almost none consequences at all, only some small changes. So, what I would really like to see in the sequel is for the writers and developers to take inspiration from some other game. And what is the other choice-based game with really strong story, where choices actually had real consequences? I hope that at least somebody guessed the same thing. Yep, it's Detroit Become Human. And before I proceed, I have to warn you that in this video there will be spoilers for this game as well. So, with that being said, let's continue. Detroit Become Human was absolutely amazing game made by Quantic Dream. I don't want to talk much about its story, because I still want to keep this a Life is Strange video. So, to sum it up, we played as 3 androids, Connor, Kara, and Marcus. And with each android, we could make choices. Choices that could help us progress easier, but also make the game harder for us. Choices that could form our friendships with other humans and androids, but also make them our enemies. Choices that would have an impact also to other androids we could play as. So, for example, if Kara made some choice, it might have some consequences for Connor as well, and so on. Some of the playable androids could even die, or rather be destroyed, which would make you unable to play for them again in that specific playthrough. And this is something I would really like to see in Double Exposure's sequel. Well, not our characters dying, of course. In my opinion, even if Double Exposure's ending really wasn't the best, it actually opened a great opportunity to take inspiration from Detroit Become Human. If you're asking how, let me explain in a few points. Number 1. Multiple playable characters. Imagine stepping into the shoes of not just 1, but 3 characters with powers after Double Exposure. So far, we've only played as Max. But what if the sequel actually took inspiration from Detroit Become Human and occasionally switched between Max, Safi, and Diamond? And yes, Priceville fans, this one's for you too. This could finally give everyone what they wanted. Let's start with Max. We don't know exactly how much time has passed, but she's likely still at Caledon University. Some people there already know about her powers, including the platypus facts, of course.
Not me getting emotional over platypus facts.
Max and Moses might be working together to figure out what exactly happened when Safi lost control on the Overlook, and how the dead and the living world became one. Maybe Max will even get another chance with Amanda. Beyond that, Max's story could take her back to Arcadia Bay or bring her into contact with Chloe, depending on whether Chloe is alive or not in your playthrough. This could let the game honor your Bay versus Bay choice, something fans have been asking for. And of course, having Max playable also means that Chloe can make a proper appearance, whether in flashbacks or something bigger, like, for example, merging timelines from Sacrifice Chloe and Sacrifice Arcadia Bay. According to leaks, that was originally planned for Double Exposure. Max's storyline might also focus on building trust between people with and without powers, and she would probably be there to stop Safi if things go sideways. Next up is Safi. For those who wished they could have played as her in Double Exposure, this would be a dream come true. Playing as Safi would let us dive deeper into her true motivations and feelings. Is she really out to rule the world? Or does she want to use her powers to make it a better place? Even if the ending suggested she might misuse her powers, there's room for her to change course. Maybe take an anti-hero path. I don't think Safi will be a straightforward villain, but more of a morally grey character. Plus, we could finally explore her relationship with Yasmin after that intense moment when Safi shot her. And honestly, if done right, being able to use Safi's shape-shifting powers would be a blast. Imagine confusing NPCs, sneaking around, or causing chaos. That would add a whole new layer of gameplay fun. And finally, there's Diamond. We still don't know exactly what her powers are, but I expect to see her training with Safi and exploring her love interest in Moses or friendship with Reggie. It's unclear, if she will lean more towards Max's side or Safi's side. But if we got to play as her, that choice might be ours to make. See what I mean? If we could play as Max, Safi, and Diamond, everyone might be able to get exactly what they wanted in double exposure, but didn't get it. And also, don't forget about the fact that Safi is out there looking for other people with powers, meaning that there is a real possibility that we might see Daniel and Alex again. But to be honest, I don't think that we'll be able to play as them. In my opinion, having 5 playable characters would be too much for one game. So, there's the first big inspiration by Detroit Become Human. Is there anything else that could inspire Life is Strange? Damn right there is. Let's move to number 2. This action will have consequences, not being just a phrase. Another big complaint about double exposure was that our actions hardly felt like they had any real consequences. And honestly, in many cases, that criticism was absolutely right. Sure, your choices impacted the story a little, but often those changes were barely noticeable. For example, telling Safi you would kill her if you had to, versus telling her you wouldn't, only changed a single line during the snapping turtle conversation. Other than her immediate reaction, nothing else changed. And choosing whether Chloe is alive or dead barely affected the story either. The biggest differences were mostly in Max's journal. If you want a deep dive into all the possible outcomes of double exposure, check out Playing with Heart YouTube channel. The channel owner played the game dozens of times and mapped out nearly all the story possibilities. Her videos are awesome and funny. I will leave the link down in the video description. Back to the point. How could the next Life is Strange learn from Detroit Become Human here? Simple. Imagine if, like in my first point, we could play as Max, Safi, and Diamond. That alone could branch out into tons of story scenarios. For example, Safi taking a more evil, neutral, or good path. This could form a morality system like in Life is Strange 2. But here, the ripple effects would impact not just Safi's story, but Max's and Diamond's as well. For instance, if Safi's actions turn public opinion against people with powers, Max might face distrust, making it harder to get information or forcing her to find new ways around obstacles. People might even become hostile towards her. In Detroit Become Human, hostile public opinion could block access to good endings, something that Life is Strange could borrow to increase tension and make players feel that their choices really matter. Max could also do things that might shift public opinion, opening some story paths for Safi while closing others. So, choices wouldn't just affect the character you're currently playing as, but all 3, with serious, lasting consequences that could dramatically change how the story could play out. What could this add to Life is Strange? A great replay value. It would not be just a game for 1 or 2 playthroughs, but we could play many more times and still explore new unknown parts of the game. What if Safi went good or evil? How does Max handle that? Whose side does Diamond pick? And how do these choices affect everyone around them? Moses, Vin, Amanda, Gwen, Yasmin, Lucas, and maybe even Daniel, Alex, Steph, or Chloe. Trust me, 3 game save slots wouldn't be enough for that. And don't even get me started with how in Detroit Become Human, we had to make some complex and very important choices with high morality impact in a really short time. It was like, okay, here are your options. Think fast, choose faster. Still nothing? Oops, you took too long, so this one choice is not available anymore. This game was really rushing us to make some game-changing decisions in just a few seconds, while in double exposure, important choices, or, well, at least those choices which seemed important, right? At unlimited time, So while the game was waiting for you to make your choice, you had all the time in the world to analyze all the possible outcomes and morality impacts, just to find out that there were actually almost none at all. This could also add another level of connection between players and characters, because players would then have to decide faster, often maybe even regretting their choice, and then feeling sorry for the characters for making bad choices for them. I am fully aware that to create such complex and thoughtful story, it would take a really long time and effort. But to be honest, if we would get such masterpiece, I am so willing to wait. And I think that I'm not the only one. If we could play as Max, Safi and Diamond, there is still one more thing in which the next Life is Strange game might take inspiration from Detroit Become Human, and that is number 3, unique soundtrack styles. One of the most unforgettable aspects of Detroit Become Human was how each main character had a distinct musical identity. Kara's soundtrack was emotional and orchestral, reflecting her compassion and vulnerability. Connor's music was mysterious and electronic, matching his calculated, analytical nature. And Marcus's theme was powerful and cinematic, with revolutionary undertones that captured his rise as a leader. If the next Life is Strange game took inspiration from this approach, we could see each main character represented by their own unique musical style. Something that reflects their personality, emotions, or inner conflicts. It would deepen the connection between players and the characters and add another layer of emotional storytelling. Life is Strange has always been praised for its beautiful soundtracks. Even in games that received mixed reviews, the music stood out as a highlight. Giving each character their own musical identity could elevate that strength even further, and I would totally love if the sequel took this inspiration from Detroit Become Human. So, we've looked at a few ways how getting inspired by Detroit Become Human could make the next Life is Strange game an absolute masterpiece. Being able to play as Max, Safi, and Diamond, having unique soundtrack style for each playable character, or more possible story branches caused by greater consequences of our actions. In my opinion, these elements could make the next game an amazing experience for every player, even for those who really disliked double exposure. It would give us all what we hoped for so much, a story-rich game where players truly decide how they want their story to go, with great replay value. We could also see Chloe and other beloved characters from Arcadia Bay as well. But don't take anything in this video for granted. As I mentioned, it isn't about what I think that will be in the sequel. It's about what could make the sequel the great Life is Strange game we're all hoping for. And honestly, taking inspiration from Detroit Become Human could be just the right move. What are your opinions about this? Do you agree, or do you think something else? Or do you think that maybe Life is Strange should take inspiration from an entirely different game? Let me know down in the comments. I look forward to all of your opinions. If you liked this video, I would be really grateful if you could press that like button. Also, if you missed my previous video about how double exposure could be inspired by the Life is Strange comic books, you can go check it out. Also, if you missed my first video where I tried to explain some unanswered questions, why not give it a chance as well? Thanks again for watching and have a nice day.